6-6 today in Advanced Algebra 2. Pretty simple stuff. We're going to take a base to a rational exponent. We're also going to rewrite some of this stuff. Rational exponents, here's what it's all about right here. It says if you've got like b to the 1 over n power or any kind of rational, the exponent is a fraction, right? It's rational exponents. You got a fraction for an exponent up there. It's power over root is how it is. We've been kind of talking about it the past couple of days. Power over root. Well, it says anything that you got as b to the 1 over n, that's the same thing as saying it's the nth root of b. Isn't the base b both times in this situation? Power over root, n is the root right there, right? It's whatever that little index is, and there's your first power right there. It's like power over root kind of situation. There's only a couple of restrictions. They say the base has to be positive, or I should say not 0. Let me try that one more time. The base has to be non-negative, right? It could be 0 and it can be positive if this is an even root. For example, do you have an even root? Yes or no? Yes. That base underneath there, isn't that negative? Can't do it. You can't take a fourth root of a negative base. So what we're doing here is we're just rewriting these. And if they have a rational exponent, we're going to use a radical. If they have a radical, we're going to change it to a rational exponent. So our base is x, correct? We're going to put a radical around it. If you got it to the 1/6 power, 1 is the power, 6 is the root. Power over root. So which root do we have right here? 6th root goes right there for an index. And then it's like to the first power right there, which you really don't need to put that 1 in there, but that's where it really goes. It's the base to this power, and there's our root right here. So over to number 2, don't we have a rational exponent? We want to write it with a radical. So base a, here's the radical. What's our root in this situation? Is it the 1 or the 5? 5. We got the 5th root of a to the first power. So far, so good. Number 3, we've got a base d. Since it's a rational exponent, we're going to write it with a radical. I got an rational exponent of 4/7. Which one's the root, the 4 or the 7? Because it's power over root, so you put the little 7 up here on the index, and then the 4 has to go in here. It's d to the 4th, and then you take the 7th root of that situation. Try number 4 for me, if you would. Rewrite that with radicals. Should be the cube root of t squared. Feeling pretty cozy with that. They gave you a rational exponent. We wanted to write it with radicals. Now we go reverse. They give us a radical. We want to write it with a rational exponent, so it's always just power over root. This is a z to the, what power would we do, baby? 1/4. Power over root. Over here, what does that say right there? Is that an 8 or a 3? That's an 8. Okay, so we got c to the 8/3 or 3/8? 3/8. Power over root. It's just a little phrase to remember. Keeps you out of a jam. Power over root. Base of negative c. Since the base is negative, you want to put it in parentheses, right? Whatever that's underneath that radical symbol, just make it a quantity, and then we go to the 1/3 power. Can you take a cube root of a negative underneath there? Can that happen? Yep. And finally, interesting. So easy that it's hard. W is the base, and what would we raise it to? First power, second power. I need power over root. Here's the power, correct? What's the root? Root is 2, correct? So what power do we have right there, my friends? To the 1/2 power. Does that make sense? Okay, cool. Power over root, power over root, power over root. So for you people out there in video land, Mrs. Colwell typed out instructions of how she wants these done. That's great. It's all good. I like to do it in a different order. I feel that what she does last is something that I would like to do first because it's the most forgotten thing ever. So if you're my student, I'd like you to cross these instructions out and write these 4 things down. If you're a Colwell person, then do just like what she says in this order. So please pause the video and get that done. Now, here's what we're going to do. First thing we got to realize is check for an even root and a negative base. Okay? Here's our first problem. Doesn't that say 81 to the negative 1/4 power? Correct? What's the base out of that situation? 81. Is the base negative? Yes or no? No. Because we're looking to see, isn't the root of 4? We're trying to see, are we taking the 4th root of a negative base at all? We are not doing that. Isn't the base positive? Correct? So since the base is positive, we pass the first check right here. We're good here. Step 2, if the what is negative? If the exponent is negative, you should reciprocate the base. You were taught that in algebra. You may have forgotten it, but that's all that the negative exponent means, is take this base right here and reciprocate it, a.k.a. flip it over. What's the reciprocal of 81? 1 over 81. So here's what we'll do. We'll do a little rewriting. 1 over 81 is the entire base. And now it is raised to the positive 1/4 power. That's all that negative exponent meant, was reciprocate the base. I have used that exponent by flipping that base upside down. Cool? Now we've done this. We do the root first. You always want to do the root first. What roots do we have in this situation? Since we have power over root, what root do we want? We need the 4th root of 1 over 81. So let's do that. Do you know what the 4th root of 1 is? It's 1. Do you know what the 4th root of 81 is? It's 3. And then you'd be left with that entire base to whatever power is left over. It just so happens that the power in this case is a 1, so we're like done with this problem right here. We're trying to just figure out what is 81 to the negative 1/4 power. It turns out to be 1/3. Just takes a little practice. The more we do, you'll be like, this is the easiest thing ever if you know those numbers on your perfect note card. This guy, first thing you check, is the base negative, and do you have an even root? Do we have any of that going on here on number 10? Nope. So the next thing we check for, look at your exponent. Is your exponent negative? Yes or no? Nope. So then we move to step 3. Let's take the root. Do you know the cube root of 216? It's 6. And you're still left with that power, right? All we did is we used this little guy right here. We used the cube root. Is everyone cool with the cube root of 216 is 6? And it's now left to the 2nd power. When you're doing this, I want to see that, okay? I don't want any of this all done in one step. They're multiple steppers. I need to see 6 squared. Then 6 squared is how much? And that's our final answer, so we circle it. This is all non-calculator test type of questions. Do you know what's going on with this exponent? Cool. Let's try number 11. According to the order of our checklist here, check for a negative base. Do we have a negative base? Yep, but that doesn't mean anything. It's also, you have to have an even root with this situation also. Do we have a negative base with an even root? So that means can't do the problem. You cannot take the square root of negative 36 in the real number system. You with me on that? It's just like if I wrote this. Can't do it, right? It's not in the real number system. Good with that? How about 12? Do we have a negative base? So we can move on to step 2. Do we have a negative exponent? Nope. Time to use the root. That's a 3. 8. 8. 8th root of 256. Holy cow. Take a guess. 2. That's something we're not expecting you to know, so let's punch it into calculator and double check. If you took 256 to the 1/8 power, what would you get? Punch it in real quick. So we punch that puppy in, and 256 to the 1/8 power is 2, so we're left with this. We've got 2 to the 3rd power. Correct? Isn't that a 3 upstairs? Hard for me to read that little scrunchy deal. And what's 2 cubed, baby? 8. 13. Check step 1. We've got a negative base, right? What root are we trying to take, even or odd? Can you take the odd root of a negative base? Well, let's do it. What's the 5th root of negative 32? Negative 2. Keep it in parentheses. And then that power of 2 is still there, right? Now we got to square negative 2, and what do you get? 4 or negative 4? You get a positive 4. Pretty cool? You and Pal on 14 decide if we can do it or if we can't do it. Can we do number 14? What do you think? Yes or no? The answer is yes. A lot of people see that negative, and they're like, oh, you can't do it. You got an even root and a negative. It's not a negative base. It's a negative exponent. So we can do it because the base is positive. Now let's use the negative exponent. Negative exponent means reciprocate the base. So what's the reciprocal of 49? 1/49. Put it in parentheses, and it's still raised to the positive 1/2 power now. All the reciprocation did was get rid of the negative part of the exponent. Now, when we square root this puppy, what's the square root of 1/49? 1/7. It'd be raised to the first power, and we are done. Boy, if you know these numbers, there's a piece of cake, isn't it? Yeah. Try 15 then. Try 15. No negative base, right? Don't have a negative exponent, so I don't have any reciprocation going on. I just need the cube root of 343. What's the cube root of 343? 7, baby. 16. Give that one a shot. No negative base, so I can do it. I do have a negative exponent, right? Does that say negative 1/5? Okay, so that means I need to reciprocate the base and raise it to the positive 1/5. Now I need the fifth root of 1/32. Well, the fifth root of 1 is 1. The fifth root of 32 is 2. And it'll be raised to the first power, which I don't need to write down, so done with that. Page. Hey, man, I'm done. It's all you now. We're going to do it groups of 4s. Okay, so I'm going to talk to the video people. All you people out there in video land, don't quit on me right now, because there's more new material at the end of these, like this entire page right here. But it's going to be quick and sweet. Do 4 at a time, then come back and check. Then do another 4 and come back and check. So do these 4 with the video paused, then check, then do the next 4 and the next 4 and the next 4. Ready? Go for it. Because those 4 should be pretty quick. This is the square root of 9. This is the cube root of 8. This is the fourth root of 16. This is the square root of 36. We're doing these 4 maneuvers. Check for an even root to see if it can even be done. Then if there's a negative exponent, we'll reciprocate the base, take the root, use the power. You cool with what we're doing? Next 4. Go for it. In 31 through 34, are there any of them that we can't do? What do you think? Any empty set kind of deals or undefined? All the bases are positive, correct? So we can do them all, all right? Here's what you should have got. 31 needed no real work to show. 32 needed no real work to show. 33, we needed to reciprocate that base. And then you take the fourth root of 16 and get 1/2. 34 was a lot of work. You had a negative exponent. You should have reciprocated it. It's to the positive 2/3. Then cube root each thing. You get 10 over 4 in the quantity. It's still being squared. I went ahead and reduced 10/4 before I moved on. Doesn't 10/4 reduce to 5/2? Then I squared it and got 25/4 for a final. 4 more. First one had a negative base and an even root. That's a no dice. Everything else was doable. I got a question for you, though, before we get too deep into this worksheet. On number 37, what's the base? Is it negative 8 or is it positive 8? The base is positive 8. If the base was a negative 8, it'd be in parentheses, right? That's something that we just don't understand. We haven't done enough of those yet. The base is what's being raised to the 1/3 power. And right now, this really says this. It says, please take 8 to the 1/3 power, then take it times -1. Because look at these two problems down here. Boy, oh boy, they look exactly the same, don't they? But they are not exactly the same. So when we do the next 4 problems, pay special attention to what you think is supposed to happen on those. Okay? Give them a shot. If the base is negative, it will be in parentheses. So I want to kind of go out of order. What do you think about 39? Can't do it. Negative base, even root. Correct? Jump over here. 42. Let's skip these for a second. Can you do 42? Yes or no? Yep, got to do a little bit of this, though. Why am I doing this? Negative exponent. Fourth root, looks like that'd be 1/5, baby, correct? To the third power, which is 1/125th, correct? Now, let's watch the magic happen on this one. Tell me about 40. Is the base negative? Yes or no? Yes. Can we do this problem? Yes, because even though the base is negative, isn't the root odd, correct? So I need to take the cube root of -8, which is -2, and it stays in parentheses, 2. And what's the power this is still raised to is the second. What's -2 squared, my friends? 4. You have to show that. Yes, yes, yes. If you are doing this all in your head, I would probably put a big fat F on that non-calculator test. You with me on that? I want to see each little step. Sound cool? Done. Next guy. Base, negative or positive? Positive. But see, this negative, he's going to come along for the ride. Don't I need to take the cube root of +8? What's the cube root of +8? 2. And it's being squared still, but that negative hasn't disappeared yet, correct? Now I need to square what? What do I square? -2 is not the base. What's the base? 2 is the base. Square 2. What's 2 squared right here? 4. And that negative, he's still there. The final answer is -4. It's all about parentheses. If the negative is inside parentheses, then it stays with the base. If it's not, it's just going to be at your final answer. That's just going to keep coming on down for the ride. 4 more. Go for them. The trickiest one is the first one. Tell me about the base on number 43. What's the base? It's a +100. It's a +100. See that negative? Not in parentheses. We can do the first one. You take the square root of 100 and get 10 and bring the negative down for the ride. All right? It's all about parentheses. Here's the rest of them for you, just to check yourself. 4 more. Check yourself and then keep moving on. Oops. There's your next 4. Do all 16 of them now. If you're in video land, there's 16 left on the third page here. Get them all done, check them. Then we'll do those last 6 problems together. There's 8 of them for you, video people. Someone said on a problem like this, is like, if there's a negative that's not in the parentheses, will the answer always come out negative? Maybe not. Because what if this was like to the third power or something like this? Like you take a negative to an odd power, it becomes negative. Then you got to take it. Like, give me one. I'll give you one right here. -2 to the 1/3. Wow. Let's put an 8 there. -8 to the 1/3 power. Well, I guess the base is always positive. So yeah, it will always turn out negative, right? It will always turn out negative because if this is the case, then the base is positive all the time, right? So yes, if there's a negative not in parentheses, then the answer will always come out negative.